Bernadette talked to my mother the same way she talked to her cats. It sounded almost like singing. "Precious bouquet, where is my precious bouquet?" she called every morning when she came through the connecting door to help me get Mama up and dressed. Getting Mama going in the morning used to be hard before she learned to brush her own teeth and comb her hair. It got easier along the way, except that it was always hard to predict when Mama was going to cook up a rimple or hoist a foible, as Bernie also sometimes called it. I think we both felt better knowing we had each other there, just in case. Precious bouquet, or usually just Precious, is what Bernadette called Mama. If, God forbid, so be it, is her true given name, I hope to heaven I never meet the person who gave birth to a gentle soul like your Mama and slapped a no-name kind of name on her like that. It's just plain cruel, Bernie said. Well, why is it cruel? I asked. So be it means the same thing as amen. Like in the Bible? Yes. In fact, it's the very last word in the Bible. Amen. And that's what you say when something's over and done with, Heidi. Sort of like the end, I said. Exactly, said Bernadette. So be it, the end. In my mind, the beginning of a life, especially if it seems destined to be a challenging one, deserves the most promising name you can come up with. A beginning kind of name, like Dawn or Hope or Aurora. Is Heidi a promising name? I asked. She smiled at me and touched my cheek. Filled to the brim with promise, she said. At any rate, I imagine it was your mother's mother who had the sad notion to give your Mama her name. And I'll tell you something. If I ever meet up with your granny, I'm going to give her a piece of my mind. I know it's strange, but until Bernadette mentioned my Grammy like that, I hadn't thought to wonder if I had one. Bernie had always said it was if Mama and I had dropped from the sky, and up until then I guess I just figured that we had. Has Mama got a mother? I asked. Well, everybody's got a mother, she answered. Well, where is she then? Well, that's another question entirely, she answered. Well, what's the answer? I asked. Bernadette laughed. I'm not going to tell you there isn't one, because I know you well enough by now to know you'll get your panties in a twist, Heidi-ho. People just don't disappear off the face of the earth without somebody noticing, do they? I asked. Not usually, no, Bernadette said softly. Bernadette was a big list maker, and once she'd had me reading and writing on my own, she got me into the habit of list making too. Now, mostly hers were shopping and to-do lists. Some of mine were like that too, ways of keeping track of things like Mama's vocabulary list on the cupboard door. But I made other kinds of lists too. And one of the very first ones I remember was called Things I Know About Mama. There wasn't much to it. Things I Know About Mama. Name. So be it. Obviously, I wasn't much of a list maker back when I did that, because I certainly knew a lot more about my mother than just her name. I could have put down that she stood 5 feet tall on the dot in bare feet. She had the same pale blue eyes I do, only wider set. And I could have said she was beautiful and her hair was bone straight, not curly like mine, and parted in the middle so that it hung down like curtains on either side of her face. I knew other things too, like she hated to wear socks, rainy days made her anxious, and she'd do almost anything you asked her to if you promised her a juji fruit after, as long as it wasn't a green one. I could have put all of that down, and more besides, but as I said, I wasn't much of a list maker back then. I kept my lists in a red spiral notebook with dividers, and sometimes I wish I still had it, to remind me of who I was before. After Bernadette brought up that business about my Grammy giving Mama an unpromising name, I started thinking about some things I hadn't thought about before. Who am I? I remember asking Bernadette one day in the kitchen. You are my sugar baby, my sugar baby doll, she sang in reply. No, Bernie, who am I really? I asked again. You're Heidi, Heidi it. Well, is that all? I said. Well, that's plenty in my book. What more do you need to be than who you are right now? Well, shouldn't a person know their history? I asked. What is it you want to know? Bernie said. Well, lots of things, such as, where was I born? Who named me Heidi? I asked. Well, maybe you were named after the book, or maybe the movie. Shirley Temple was in that. Oh, how I loved her movies. But who saw the movie? Mama? My Grammy? What difference does it make? Bernie said. A person isn't supposed to have to guess who they are. They're supposed to know, I said. You know who you are, Heidi, and you have a history too. Well, not from the beginning, I said, only from when Mama and I met you. What happened before that doesn't matter, baby. It's just something to be grateful for, because if it hadn't happened, you and I wouldn't be standing here right now having this conversation. A person has a right to know from the beginning, I insisted. I suppose a person has a right to want to know, she said. It wasn't too long after that I decided to make a new list. Instead of things I knew about Mama, it would be a list of all the things I didn't know about her. There were so many, I had a feeling as I opened my notebook this would turn out to be the longest list I'd ever made. I pictured it being so long that it would stretch to the moon and back again. I began in the usual way by writing the heading on top. Things I don't know about Mama. And then I wrote the first thing that came to my mind. What is Soof? And here's the funny thing. Once I wrote that, I couldn't go any further. I stared at the page for a long time, but all the other questions I'd thought of seemed small and unimportant compared to that one. What is Soof? The words grew louder in my head, and as I watched, the letters expanded and blurred together, spreading across the page and spilling over the edges like sweet milky tea, until the question became so vast I could imagine it stretching to the moon and back again all by itself.